Hi, welcome back to the Mob Mentality Show. My name is Austin Chadwick, and co-host is Chris Lucian. And today we are excited to share about the software professional resources Trello board. How it was created, what we use it for, how others in the community have found it useful, and maybe some tangential topics related to it. But first, to jump in, Chris, can you kind of tell the origin story of this thing?
Yeah, so I guess a long time ago, maybe I don't know, 10 years, 10 years ago or so, I realized that I was kind of having similar conversations with people over and over again. And it would be like, oh, where did you come up with this idea? I was like, oh, well, I found it in that book, and so on and so forth. So I kind of had like this maybe, rehash, or I couldn't remember what resource it was. And so I kind of started putting together this professional resources. And I don't know if I told it to you differently, Austin, in the past or whatever. So remind me if I'm forgetting anything. It's been around a long time now. And so I was trying to think about like what's the best way to keep my notes, and I think one thing was just keeping it in a public space, and I didn't really think that my blog was like the best. And then I realized, Trello has like the ability for having collaborators, and so like one thing I wanted was the people that funneled me links often, and found them useful, or whatever we were sharing a lot, we could bring them together. So um, at some point it kind of became this board of different lists, and it was categorized as uh different types of learning and what you might need to do. So it's like section on Kanban and mobbing and other things. I actually didn't really put mobbing on there initially, and that was something that came later. I think Austin, you might have added it. And so, stuff on craftsmanship and TDD and katas and dojos and other things along those lines. Habits, anything that I like kind of remotely found useful, I would put it here, and then either I'd direct people to come look at it, and kind of just spreading the knowledge quickly, or a good way for me to remember it as well. So categorized and other things along those lines. It ended up becoming incredibly useful for me over time, and then as I invited maintainers, they kind of dynamically grew. And there's just a lot of great stuff on here. And so now if I need to find, it's like somebody's like, hey, I know your team does Kanban, can you tell me a little bit more about it? It's like I just immediately can pop up like, oh, this is useful for, and these are the reasons. There's also a thumbs up system, and I think the thumbs up is actually public. So if people read these or like them, you don't have to be a maintainer to actually thumbs up the item, and you can always like contact a maintainer to add things. And so, yeah, I don't know, Austin, what are your thoughts? I know that you got sucked into it as well, so.
No, I love it. I love it. It's been a really fun project to help maintain. And one part of the origin story I'd like you to add a little bit on is why Trello?
Oh, so Trello, I think, especially back then, was like one of the only places that people could go to for like a public board where, and I think the horizontal and vertical layouts are really good. I've seen a lot of stuff like this in the past organized inside Google Documents. And one thing is like on Trello, you can kind of post pictures on cards, and a number of other little features like that. So it's a little bit more pleasing to the eye, as well as a little easier to add on to dynamically move things around. The maintainability, I think, was a lot better than, like, say, a shared spreadsheet on the internet or something. Um, but yeah, I think that was my primary reason around that. Also keeping notes on each of the items and setting up the tagging system as well. Although I think things are a little under tagged these days, but a lot of the times it'll be like, oh, I just want to see links to blog posts, or I just want to see videos or whatever. So there's just stuff like that that kind of easily allowed for that sort of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you were inspired by someone else's Trello board. It was
Right. Yes. And I have
retrospective
that in there.
approaches.
Yeah. So there was a retrospectives board. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. I did forget that. Um, there is a retrospectives board that was similarly organized that way. And so that Trello board ended up having, yeah, huge curated Trello board. And that's maintained by a number of people as well. So that ended up being a really cool resource as well. So actually, yeah, this board leads to that one. So I was looking for retrospectives. I uh, I saw this, and then that inspired the formatting or why those things were there. Thank you, Austin.
Nice.
Slipping my
Nice.
mind.
Right on, right on. Yeah. And I think you obviously had created this and then you were sending me links to stuff on it because I believe your and I's friendship started with me at another company and I was looking for resources to share with my teams. And then I think you might have created it during that period because I remember you were sending me bunches of links over and over. And then you're like, and then all of a sudden it started becoming these Trello links. And I'm like, oh yeah, look at this board he's creating of all this stuff. And then once we started mobbing together, um, I think you added me to one of the curators or whatever, right? So
Right.
yeah. And
Well,
so
yeah, you would send me links back as well as other people on that list.
yeah, right.
And
And
so it just kind of became like this ecosystem of links. I think not a lot of people spent a lot of time on it, it's except for you and I, but
yeah,
um, uh, it has grown sizably, and the information is super useful. I've actually made a number of spin-offs actually for game development resources as well as other things, just
rad.
because there's other categories. But yeah, I think seeing that initial the retrospectives Trello board, I was just like, oh man, like this is a really great way to um, yeah, just collaborate and funnel these things on there. So,
Nice. Yeah. And I think a similar pattern to what you experienced is that once I kind of saw the benefit of it because something would come up where we had visitors or you'd be at a conference talking to somebody or someone online has a question and you found yourself doing the same sequence of Google searches over and over and over again, right?
right,
Right? Like there's a YouTube video that kind of has something about this, but you also it like ties in with this other article. And so it was just kind of almost like automating the process of sharing good stuff with other people. It's like you
yeah,
create a card and then you put related content in the card. And then that way you're just like, oh, here's this card. Right. Um, or I've done it at times where people are like, I'll give them the link to the whole board and then I'll say, go to this column, right? And just look through it. Like one I do that a lot for is the column about like community meetups
hmm
that are like mobbing and pairing friendly. So it's like places all around the world where you can basically mob or pair for free with the live people
right,
remotely in different time zones. And so there's just all these different kinds of groups or ways to do visiting programs at other places. And so instead of being like, here's look up all the places again and put that in a, social media post or a response to someone over email or what have you. It's just like, oh, go to the board, go to this column, look through those cards. That'll get you what you need.
right,
And then so it started with sharing with others. And then part of it for me was like, oh, I'm compounding knowledge to share with others. But also it's like you kind of get invested into like organizing the knowledge, like, oh, well, these four cards go together in this new column. And then you're kind of like, I don't know, it's like refactoring your mind by refactoring the Trello board a little bit.
right.
Like, like, oh, these two things are related. Those content should go together. Or this is separate from that. That should go to another card. And so, yeah, that's been partly how I use it.
Yeah, well,
Um, yeah,
just kind of looking through some of the cards here, there was a period of time where, I would be invited to a meeting and it was on like company-wide strategy. I'm like, oh, I need to do a lot of research on strategy just so that I can speak to this well.
Right.
And so I just ended up creating a new column and filling my queue, asking then Twitter, but now whatever else, YouTube and other places, um, like, hey, give me some resources on uh, that are the best resources that you have on strategy, and then consuming all of that material. And then the things that I liked, I threw in here. So I would have like these like learning binges, and so and those would make it on here a lot. And I used to post like do a thorough blog post if I had to defend something in particular, and so that also played into the growth of this board as well. But yeah, it's like the column on strategy, I think, wouldn't have been there had it not been for like this other event that I was preparing for.
Hmm.
Um, but other things just came in there organically, and so it's a really good, I don't know, and it helps remember, different topics and things like that too. So it's pretty good.
Nice. Yeah. And we'll talk about community use or community feedback from it, but um, the one other thing I started using it a lot for that I use quite continuously for is as I read a book that's on the board,
Hmm.
I'll add quotes that I like from it to the card as like comments. And so now if it's kind of like so the search tool across the top is great because in Trello, because it'll search the entire board. So you can just search for free text, which might be like columns or card names. But sometimes I'll be like, oh, there was this quote that really applies to the situation. And then I just like type half thoughts, like, like a broken version of that quote. And it usually opens the card with the quote. And then I'm like, oh, it's from this book, right? Or if I'm like, you're in a book club and you're talking about a book, you can like collect all your quotes and then categorize them by topic.
Right.
And so I've done that with, I don't know, probably 20, 30 books in here. So the board is not only rich of just like, oh, that book is good in craftsmanship, but it'll have 30 quotes in there for the Fowler's refactoring book or refactoring to patterns book, quotes that we've collected and popped in there. And so in that ways, it's kind of like a blend of good reads. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
been to those sites where people collect quotes on the books. Um, but it's like the quotes are embedded into the card, which might be related to other content like videos and things about the same content. And so, um, and you were talking about spin-off boards for books that aren't software professional resources. I actually made my own board for all the books and things in there that I've been
Nice.
reading, and do the same kind of thing where I put as a comment to the card, I put a quote. And yeah, it's a very if the internet ever went down and Trello was gone, there'd be a lot of compounded quotes and knowledge that I love. It would be lost in there, but that's okay. It's part of the forming you process. Like it helps form you as you collect the quotes and the knowledge.
What you're saying
And
is don't delete the board. I got it.
don't delete the board, Chris. Yes, please
Yeah.
don't.
I believe you can actually export the contents too at some level and back it up if you ever wanted to.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Trello, if you're listening,
Yeah.
back up our content as well. Right on. Yeah, and I guess to before we close it out, it's been I think a cool. I'll put a link to something that Alex Bird shared with me, which was like the benefits of learning in public, and he has an article for that. Is that it's like it's kind of this is a different version of start a blog, and when you learn something, make a blog post about it. So it's
Right.
like when we learn something, sometimes we'll create a card and put it in here, but you put it in a public space so that potentially other people can learn from it too.
Hmm.
Worst case, no one else learns from it, and you just categorize your knowledge better or documented your knowledge better. But to not toot our own horn, it's been really fun. I'm looking at over the years, it's been 5, 10, 15 times where people will send fan mail on the board like, wow, what is this thing? Really useful, cool use of Trello. Other people. Best thing that happened to me this morning, the Trello board card of 7 habits of highly effective people with all the quotes. And then let's see, behind the link. So I think we posted a link that was like one of the cards on the board. And then
Yeah.
some like so when they click on the link, it'll be the card. But then if you like click past the link, you'll see the whole board.
Right. It's a
And someone
modal.
was
Yeah.
like, Behind the link is an excellent resource compilation. Um, yeah, someone said the board is a gem of curated content. And what's funny is it's like we didn't really make it for public, like perusing wasn't the
Right.
primary intent. But so if you do make things like this, please share them with us because those are good things to know about because maybe we can benefit from your boards or we'll be inspired to add ideas to our boards. And who knows who will benefit from what you make.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
and that's like a big point is that a lot of these boards are linked to each other, and so you can get to one from the other, and so um, you can have stuff resources like this available. So creating a
yeah.
community around that or a community of communities is a cool idea too.
Yeah. Right on. Well, thank you, audience, for hearing about how we've kind of learned in public. And if you've
Yeah.
done something similar, love to hear about it. If you have feedback on our board, like, yeah, it's got some okay, good stuff here, but please fix it up by doing this or that. We'll see what we can do. So we'd love to hear feedback on the board, the content, and any other suggestions. We'll obviously post a link to the software professional resources in the show notes. And if you got any things you'd like to add to the list, by all means, share with us. We love to add things, check it out, and add it. So until next time, mob on everyone and have a good one. See ya.
Bye, everybody.